Hi, I'm Michael Wan, your host for Michael Wan's Op-Ed Live, and this is Jeffrey Prang, our LA County Assessor. Our show Op-Ed Live is not about left or right, it's about what's right or wrong. So Jeffrey, how have you been doing recently?
I'm doing well.
Doing good?
We haven't seen each other for a while. I'm glad to be back.
Great. So I know that you're a political junkie as well, and you got your intake. Yesterday, a lot has happened regarding the William Barr testimony on the Senate side. And today he was supposed to show up for the Congress side, but he decided, the House side, but he decided not to. What's your takeaway about this whole thing?
Well, there's so many, but on that specific issue, his refusal to meet with the House committee, I think is problematic. There is really no reason why he should object to. His objection is that the House Democrats wanted to have some of their committee attorneys do some of the questioning, and he objects to that. And I don't know why he would, I don't know what the basis for that would be. I don't know why he would care who asks the questions. The House is entitled to do their oversight as they define it. It is his job to provide that information. And his refusal appears to be what I believe. He's been stonewalling information. He's been attempting to spin information from the beginning. And I think he doesn't want lawyers asking questions because he has a narrative that he's trying to promulgate, and he's doesn't want a bunch of attorneys throwing a wrench in the machinery.
I mean, I see nothing wrong with that. I mean, if I was William Barr, I wouldn't attend it too, because the Democrats seem to trap him. I mean, they were throwing a lot of gotcha questions yesterday with Senator Hanoi from Hawaii, and also Dianne Feinstein and everybody else. I feel like this is just a big political game for the Democrats. They want to impeach Trump. I think they still want to at least, they know that realistically they don't have a chance. Realistically they don't have a chance because Republicans are holding the Senate side. So they do know that they don't have any chance to impeach Trump, but they want to at least put that dirt on his back. Like so that's what it is. And I don't understand. It was Jerry Nadler, right? Jerry Nadler wanted to bring in his staff member to question William Barr, right? Why don't he get the questions in advance from the staff member, and then he can ask it? Seems like he's not bright enough. He's not, his legal mind is not to par to William Barr. That's why they're playing this political game. It's just a shenanigan to me.
Well, I think we can speculate about why they're doing it. I don't know why they're doing it. But if you get down to the fundamentals are the Congress has the authority to conduct oversight. When the Republicans had control, they would conduct oversight in their way. It is partisan. The Democrats do have their views, as do the Republicans. It is the Attorney General's constitutional obligation to report to Congress. He cannot declare that this is partisan, so I'm not coming, because otherwise we would have no oversight. So there's really no basis as to why he would refuse because of the way the Democrats want to hold that hearing. The public has a right to hear that information as determined by the majority party in the House of Representatives. And I think if the Attorney General and the White House want to provide the reality, or at least the appearance of transparency, they need to go before the House and answer questions.
Yeah, but you said that he's been stonewalling things, right, William Barr? I think he has been very transparent. He didn't have to. You know that he didn't have to release the Mueller report, the redacted version of it, the 422 page. He didn't have to do that. He did that, and he didn't. He did the summary. He could have finished it with that. He didn't have to reveal this. So he went a step further. And I think back in the 90s, it was the Democrats that didn't want this whole thing to be wide open during the Clinton impeachment process. So that's why they decided not to reveal, to the public the report of the studying that was found by special counsel. So
William was released, though. That report was released.
It was released,
unredacted.
But unredacted back in the day. But they decided not to do that because there has been so much implications regarding that. So that's why William Barr didn't have to do that. He didn't have to release that redacted version. He could have finished this whole thing with that summary, and that would have been it. So I don't see the problem here. I don't think he has stonewalled anything. I think he has been really transparent, probably the most transparent among all the AG so far. And I think this is just a political game that the Democrats are playing to try to show to the public, because they have the media on their side with New York Times, Washington Post, and CNN. They have the media on their side, and try to trick the public. Oh, he's trying to hide something. He's trying to do this. He's trying to do that. It doesn't make sense at all. Even the Washington Post report that came out the day before William Barr had his testimony yesterday, it's just, you know, it's just a political game. It's like a shenanigan. They had this plan concocted from the beginning. Hey, let's do this. Hey, Washington Post, you print this story out that Mueller was not satisfied about the report that came out. Actually, Mueller didn't dispute William Barr. Mueller disputed the mainstream media's reporting about his summary.
Well,
so
can we? I think we should.
That's what I want to say.
I think you and I should both stipulate that both parties, Republican and Democratic, are using this to their political advantage.
Of course,
they're both
obviously,
using their media sources. You can't say one is doing this and the other one is holier than thou. That's not the truth. They both are trying to get political advantage here. And you and I are supposed to be the policy experts who are trying to detangle this for our watchers. Here's what I think is happening and why I think that Barr's report and his pretense of being transparent really isn't transparent. One, Mueller created a report with summaries intended to be the summary that he could release to the public that would reveal what their report says. Instead, is what Barr did. He wrote his own summary that basically exonerated Trump. And it really downplayed the more substantive allegations in the Mueller report. Now that even the redacted Mueller report is out, there is substantial evidence indicating really problematic and wrongdoing behavior on behalf of the people around Trump and Trump himself. So they put out information that tried to put a positive spin, that attempted to exonerate Trump, and then by the time the full report came out and went under scrutiny by the Congress, a lot of people's minds had already been made up that this was a report that was good for the president, when in fact the evidence indicates this is not good, and there's information in there that should be subject to greater inquiry and perhaps even impeachment.
So I'll get right to the heart of this whole thing. This whole thing is happening because the Democrats know that there's going to be, and William Barr already said that there is an investigation of what predicated this whole Russia scandal. I've told our viewers all the time that this whole Russian collusion thing was fabricated by the Democrats and Hillary Clinton campaign. That's what they did. I mean, even Robert Mueller said, you agree, that he could not find any kind of collusion between Russia. Even after the Mueller report, after the 22-month report, you can't believe that report?
Can we talk about that point for just a second? So there's two things. One, the report clearly says there was collusion. What Mueller said is it did not rise to the level of conspiracy, which is the crime. When Trump Jr. met with the Russians, that was collusion. When Flynn met with the Russians,
collusion.
Those are collusion is not a legal term. They were colluding with him. They're talking to him. They're talking about issues.
But Mueller didn't see it that way.
No, he said that these things happened, but it didn't rise to the level of conspiracy, which is a crime. And there's a difference. The semantics are important. Colluding is engaging with people, and that's what caused this investigation to take place. We've said, why are all these people, senior Trump people, meeting with the Russians? They're colluding. He says, yeah, they did collude. He didn't use that word, but he says it wasn't conspiracy. It was not a crime.
No. I completely disagree with that. Mueller found no collusion. That's his founding. I think if you doubt that, then you're saying that. Then how about the Trump dossier, the Christopher Steele dossier? How that came about? The Clinton people met with Russians to get that fake dossier to wiretap Carter Page. I met Carter Page actually.
But that's not what's before us right now. Right now, what's before us is the Mueller report, not Hillary Clinton. Let's talk about the merits.
This whole thing. Okay, I think this Mueller report. William Barr had a hearing before yesterday. He had a hearing like 3 weeks ago regarding the Russia collusion thing, and he had a press conference too. And he talked about. I don't know who asked him that question. I think it was on the Congress side. Somebody asked him, "Do you think that there was a spying going on?" Right?
I heard him say that.
And William Barr said it was spying. So that's what they did. Obama administration spied on Trump. So I think this will. I guarantee you, this will. This will. This. So he's the AG. If the AG says it, I believe it. I take it, on face value. So I think this is going to blow up way bigger than Watergate. I really, truly believe that. 2019, 2020 will be one of the biggest political years in history, in my opinion. So Democrats are freaked out that this whole investigation, now they're investigating the investigators. Right now, that's what's happening. William Barr pretty much said that. You know that he said that, right?
That's the witch hunt.
I don't think that's a witch hunt at all, because they fabricated this whole Christopher Steele dossier to wiretap Trump campaign, and that's how this whole collusion thing happened. And you have the NYT, CNN, WAPO, reporting it every day on front page, and people try to brainwash people. These corrupt media companies doing all that.
The Mueller report very clearly says there was adequate evidence to lead to this investigation. After they looked at all the evidence, they said it doesn't reach the level of a crime. But also, Mueller was specific, saying, one, I'm not going to opine whether it was a crime because the Justice Department says that the policy says that we can't indict the president. So I'm not going to do that. That's against policy.
Okay.
And secondly, he also said, this does not exonerate him. It doesn't make him guilty, but it also does not exonerate him. So what he left off on that report leaves it up to others to interpret.
I think he was a coward. I think Robert Mueller is a coward to not decide. If he wanted to accuse Trump of treason or whatever, why didn't he do that? He didn't do that. He kicked the ball to William Barr. And William Barr, according to yesterday's testimony, he asked Robert Mueller, right? He said he was expecting it,
so I will agree
whether he would go with obstruction of justice or not, but he didn't.
I will agree with you on that one. Mueller, his explanation, which it was not an unreasonable explanation. I would not have done that if it. He said that we don't have the authority to make those decisions because of existing policy, and that was outside his scope. However, so he left it up to Barr to interpret.
Yeah, and William Barr made a decision.
And I don't trust Barr's judgment based on what he has done and said so far.
But isn't this?
But the thing is, Mueller should have said, "This is what we would conclude, and here's the obstacles."
But he didn't go there. But
he didn't go there, and I thought he did a great.
You know why he didn't go there? If he did that, if he went for obstruction of justice, Robert Mueller would go down as one of the worst corrupt lawyer in American history. I think he would. He knows that. He's smart enough to know that. So that's why he didn't go there.
I think he would have gone down as a hero.
No,
who was uncovering
to Democrats, I think probably he would have, but not more than. No, I don't think so. I think that he would have. He would have caused so much turmoil in this country.
To speak truth to power and to
you
say
would
that
see
the president
people on
is breaking the law, I think is courageous, and he didn't do that.
No, Robert Mueller didn't find anything. That's why he didn't go for it. Even he didn't find anything. You said even the collude. You say that's colluding, right? Meeting with that Natalie, some lady,
yes.
that lawyer. Is that colluding? Okay, then do you know how that meeting was set up? It was because of the Hillary Clinton people. Fusion GPS. She met with Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson the day before and after that meeting. And why is that? Do you think that's just happenstance? I don't think so. I think they manipulated. Did you even Adam Schiff? Did you see Adam Schiff meeting with Glenn Simpson? I don't know why they're meeting. They met.
I don't know,
but it was on report.
But I saw
everywhere.
The email from Donald Trump Jr., who he got information saying we got dirt from the Russians.
I would have gone there too.
And he said,
I don't know whether you did opposition research while you were running your campaign, but you know a lot of politicians and candidates before Election Day, they do opposition research or not? Do they do it or not?
There is opposition, but
they do opposition research.
Apples and research. So it's not apples and oranges. Here's another example. Al Gore. Somebody provided Al Gore the briefing memo for George Bush that they were going to be used in a debate, and he didn't sit down with his staff and read that briefing memo. They called the FBI and they turned that over to the FBI and said a crime has been committed. Somebody stole this information from George Bush. And there was another example where a Republican did the same for the Democrat. If Donald Trump Jr. had any integrity at all, when he heard that the Russians wanted to provide information, he should have reported that to the FBI.
I don't think so. To be honest with you, I would have gone there. Now, did you hear that report about Hillary Clinton campaign colluding with Ukraine? Did you hear about that? It was from Politico. The investigation is going on with that. And did you hear about Joe Biden's son being investigated by Ukraine prosecutor, but Joe Biden shut it down, and he was proud about it. He talked about it in front of press people.
Here's the problem with the what
You know
about.
that, right? Isn't that also colluding too?
Well, I
then?
don't know that. I didn't come prepared to talk about that because we were going to talk about the Mueller report. But we can't continue to say that that we have to analyze the Mueller report based on what's in it, and not decide that somehow or other it's okay to do that because Hillary or Joe Biden or somebody else did something as well. Each person should be held accountable for their own actions. And Trump's actions and people who are around Donald Trump's actions should create tremendous pause in people in this country, because some of the things that they did maybe involve obstruction of justice, and Americans should be very concerned that people at the highest levels of office in this land are not conducting themselves ethically. And the evidence in the Mueller report is substantial, and it's damning.
So I don't see anything wrong about it. Okay, let's go by the timeline. William Barr came up with that 4-page memo last month, right? It was last month. I think, what was it, 2 months ago almost? So it came out. Okay, so Robert Mueller.
And I thought that memo in itself was a problem. That was his.
But the memo showed it that
did not show
it showed that Mueller did not come to conclusion regarding the obstruction of justice. It was in that memo. It was in that memo.
But it did not say he did not obstruct justice. It says I did not come to a conclusion
to whether convict or exonerate. He said that he couldn't exonerate too. He even put it there.
He punted.
But do you remember in that 4-page memo that William Barr wrote that the Mueller team couldn't exonerate Trump? You remember that, right? So he pretty much reflected all the things about that.
What he did in that memo is he whitewashed it to the very end. That he
no,
put a
I don't
little
think
piece
so.
in the end.
And then so anyway, let's finish that memo thing. After that, the Mueller team wanted a 19-page abstract of it to be released, okay? And William Barr said, okay, hold up, I'm going to release the whole thing, So 422 page with, less. With a small redacted. I don't think he really redacted that much, isn't it? Like 2%.
Oh, don't say that. It's
but
more than that.
It was 422 page. He said I'm going to just release the entire 422 page redacted version of it. So I don't see any problem with that. Robert Mueller didn't have any problem with that after that 422 page came out.
So here's what I saw and how I look at what you. We're looking at the same things and coming to different conclusions. So what I saw is he put out a 4-page memo, which overwhelmingly was positive for the president. He mentioned the non-exoneration toward the end because he had to have a pretense of putting balance, but it was not balanced. They then that he didn't release the Mueller summaries. He waited for several weeks before he appeared, before he released the full report. And during that time, he, White House staff, and the president ran around the country saying, "I'm exonerated, no collusion, no corruption." Then we get the report, and the report doesn't say that at all. The report simply says that Mueller isn't going to opine on whether there was collusion, but there's enormous amount of evidence to indicate that they did.
But if the Mueller, do you agree that Mueller?
But their whole thing was a political campaign to convince this country of a narrative that wasn't the truth. So that was politics that they were playing and waiting so long and doing it the way they did it.
Do you agree that Mueller doesn't have the final say? He's not the AG.
No, of course, the AG gets...
He's not the AG. The AG has a final say. So I think William Barr, in my opinion, is a very righteous person. I think we have the right, really great Attorney General right now in office, and I'm glad about it. I think now this country is turning its course towards the right way. You know how I feel about this whole thing. I was an Obama supporter. I told you, right, back in 2008 and 2012. But I felt that what they did to Trump, I understand. All the Republicans that I met here, they didn't like Trump too. Believe me, none of them liked it. All the elected officials told me, on record, put it there, I hate Trump. So I understand how the establishment think about Trump. But the people voted him in, right? I mean, regardless of what other politicians or the elite group thought about him, they voted him in, and they couldn't stand it. So, I mean, the amazing thing is, if they were really confident that Hillary would have won the whole thing, I don't understand why they decided to spy on his campaign. Carter Page. Carter Page, he used to work for FBI and CIA. He said that. He used to work for CIA and FBI. Why did they decide to, wiretap him? I heard that there's this thing called HOP rule. It's like if Carter Page, for instance, I mean, they didn't directly wiretap Donald Trump, But they did. I bet they wiretapped him because they have a hop rule. If Carter Page, I just want to finish this point. If Carter Page talked with Steve Bannon, because I know that they did. And Steve Bannon talks with Trump, there's a hop rule. You can even wiretap from Steve Bannon to Donald Trump. You know that's what's been happening. This whole thing. The mainstream media don't want to report on that, but I know that for a fact it's true. And this kind of heinous thing came about during the Obama administration. So this whole Russia thing, if they had a trouble with it, why did they even give her a visa then? If you talk about the Trump Tower, right? They gave her a special visa to let her in. And she came in, and Trump Jr. met her. They didn't even talk about colluding or anything. They talked about what? Was it like adopting kids or something like that? It's a non-issue. They wanted to get out of the meeting.
Well, you covered a whole bunch of stuff there. So a couple things. One is I don't have the confidence in Barr that you do. I think he's been acting more like a political attorney than the head of the Justice Department in the way he's attempting to protect the president and his appearance of transparency, which is really masking lack of transparency. I didn't have confidence in him when he was appointed because I recall when he was the Attorney General under George H.W. Bush, when he basically wrote the memos to exonerate all these people who had committed crimes in the Iran-Contra affair and gave justification to give these people who
Are we
should
going
have
all the
been in
way
jail.
back to Reagan?
I'm just saying that his past actions I found problematic. He supported giving pardons to people who were convicted in a court of law of committing crimes against the United States. Casper Weinberger, Oliver North, the rest of them. But secondly, it wasn't Hillary Clinton who spied on the campaign.
I didn't say Hillary Clinton. It was the FBI.
The FBI. And the reason that they did it is articulated in the Mueller report. The Mueller report says we have Trump's campaign, himself, his son, all these people are engaged with the Russians, and it looks suspicious. They may be colluding, and we have to find out. They launched the investigation. There was evidence to indicate that there was good cause to launch the investigation. In the end, the investigation said there's all this collusion, but it wasn't conspiracy. These people probably shouldn't have done these things, but it was not a violation of the law. It doesn't mean that the investigation was that there was something wrong with doing it. They did exactly what they should have done.
You said it's in the Mueller report, right? The Mueller report did not go deep enough. That's why a lot of people criticized Mueller. If he wanted to know how much Russia involved during the 2016 election cycle, they should have gone after the Christopher Steele dossier, because that's the centerpiece of this whole thing. You know that it is. It is, you know. And George Papadopoulos, they had a spy go to approach him. That's why this William Barr decided to investigate this whole shenanigan. I believe that there's going to be a bunch of people who's going to be prosecuted. There's going to be OIG report, Office of Inspector General report coming out in 3 to 4 weeks. And I think Trump is going to declassify the FISA applications because they wanted to wiretap. You know how they wiretapped it. Without the Christopher Steele dossier, they would have not been able to wiretap Carter Page. And I believe a lot of people are going to go to jail. And you know who I think is really in danger right now? I really believe Barack Obama is in danger, because between the text messages, it wasn't in the Mueller report. It should have been. Between the text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, they said, the White House is on charge of this whole thing. It wasn't in the text. You know, I didn't create it. The White House is driving this. Yeah, I mean, they said the White House is driving this. Oh, really? The White House? If somebody says to me White House, to me, I immediately think about Barack Obama. I don't think about, it could be Joe Biden. So that text, I think, will really unravel a whole bunch of, can of worms. And it also said the POTUS wants to know everything what's going on. POTUS means what? President of the United States. So I think, this whole thing is just concocted, and the Democrats are running scared. Yesterday, I saw desperate senators, and today I see desperate congressmen and women, because they know the truth, because they knew they were behind all this. I don't know whether it was all of them or some of them. They know what's going on.
Right, they do know the truth, but I don't think they're running scared. They're on the offensive. They know that they've got this guy.
They look scared.
So a couple things. Then I have a question for you, if that's okay. It's your show.
Yeah,
so
sure.
The first one is I did just want to say about the Steele dossier, which I believe is white noise. It was nothing more than opposition research, just like you're alleging that the Trump Jr. meeting is opposition research. But here's the bigger thing. The one thing that was unequivocal in the Mueller report, He was unequivocal, and everybody agrees. He said that the Russians were working overtime trying to interfere with our elections. Everybody agrees that the Russians should not interfere with our elections. However, this president, this administration, have done nothing to respond to the fact that the
A
Russians...
lot of sanctions.
Pardon?
Sanctions.
But those
He
are
put a
de-
lot of
those are
economic
dealing with-
sanctions.
those are
He
dealing
kicked
with-
out a lot of diplomats
not
here.
dealing with the elections. He's doing, he's not put together a cyber team to combat the attack on American computer systems that house our elections. He's leaving secretaries of state throughout the country on their own to protect their systems. He has never said anything about objecting to the fact that the Russians are interfering with their elections. He should be in a state of panic. This should be a big front and center issue for him and the Republicans, and it's not, because they're not opposed to Russians interfering with the elections, because they're delivering to him a victory.
Okay. Back in 2014, Devin Nunes warned United States government that the Russians are trying to hack, trying to interrupt, engage in American election politics. So Devin Nunes, being a Republican, he's a California Republican here, right? He warned them, but they didn't do anything. They didn't. I mean, the Democrats didn't do anything. The FBI warned Democrats and Republicans, you got to be careful. You got to have some firewall, because there are some Russian hackers trying to reach your computer servers. The Republicans defended that. They defended it. They tried to, even hack Republican computer servers, but they defended it. The Democrats didn't. The Democrats just didn't. I mean, it was simple as that. And it's not even hacking. If you really get into it, somebody just sent John Podesta an email and said, hey, your computer is being hacked. I think you should change your password ID. And he put that password there. So that's how I don't know who that person is. It might, I don't think it's a Russian. To be honest with you, I think it's an inside job. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think this has a lot to do with an individual in Washington, D.C. who got, I don't know. I mean,
since the election of Donald Trump, we've now had the Mueller report, which unequivocally said the Russians interfered with our elections. You have the Republican-appointed heads of all the intelligence agencies who have said the Russians have interfered with our elections. There is no doubt that the Russians interfered with our elections. The normal response would be from a president of the United States who says, now that we have unequivocal proof that there was interference, we need to take aggressive stands to prevent these.
Isn't he? I think
no, he's not.
He put more sanctions than any other president.
But he's not doing anything to protect our elections.
Because there's not that much to protect about.
Yes, there is.
I'm a political junkie.
There's 50
I
different
check
states that each have their own election system, and they should be providing support and guidance, and the CIA, the FBI should be involved.
I mean, when you say that, many people will believe that Russians actually hacked into the voting booth, but that is not the case. It's not even connected to the internet, so that is not the case. What the Russians did is. It's all related to WikiLeaks. You know that, Julian Assange, you revealed all those, chunk of emails about collusion between the Democrat Party and also the press members. They gave questions in advance. You know that. Donna Brazile even revealed that, in her book and also in interviews.
The Russians hacked into voting databases.
They did not. In
some states, they did.
That's not the truth.
I think
so you're saying that they actually changed the numbers of vote tally? James Comey said that's not the case.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they successfully entered the databases in some states. I don't know what they.
But the way you talked about it right before that was it sounded like Russian hackers actually got hacked into the vote tallies and changed the numbers of that. Many people do think that way because of all the mainstream media nonsense and fake news. But actually, that's not the case. You know that, right? You know that the tally didn't change.
I don't know that. We have not.
You think the tally might have been changed?
I think it's within the realm of possibility. In states of Michigan,
it's not connected to the internet,
Michigan, Ohio, and it is connected to their web-based, cloud-based systems. In some states, it depends on what each individual state has its own system. And some of them are cloud-based, and some of them are not. So there are ways to get into those systems. They did, and we have 3 states where he won very, very narrowly. It's possible.
I don't see it as a possibility at all.
I haven't seen.
And what about all the collusion that the Democrats and the mainstream media are doing? You know that the mainstream media is always on the Democrat side. Come on.
No, I don't.
It went all the way back to the George W. Bush days. I wasn't a supporter of when Obama was running against McCain, I supported Obama, but the mainstream media was fawning over Obama. You know that. You don't think so?
No, I don't. I believe that the mainstream
goodness.
media reports the news, and people who don't like it call it collusion. But if the facts don't agree with your own narrative, that doesn't make it fake news. It just means those are the facts.
Even the New York Times former editor said in her book that the media has became anti-Trump paper. Even New York Times became an anti-Trump paper. Look at all the editorials, all the junk that they come out every day, day after day, column after column. Paul Krugman, Maureen Dowd. You think they're fair people?
Wait a second. That is different. Those are columnists. They are opinion writers.
Yeah, opinion writers
There's a
too,
difference
and also
between opinion writers and people. If you read the front page of the LA Times, that's not opinion.
No.
That's the news.
Okay, yeah. You think it's straight news. You think it's straight news, right?
So yes, well, the reason they criticize the president is because he does so many horrible
things. The reporters, the beat reporters, the reporters, they have their Twitter account. Look at their Twitter account, all the anti-Trump messages and all that. And one, I forgot her name. Her first name is Judith. She's a New York Times editor. She came out on Tucker Carlson interview. She did an interview with Tucker Carlson, and she said this is shameful. She even admitted, that her reporters, that they're not supposed to put their opinion in their writing. But if you look at the writings that they do, I'm not talking about just opinion people. Okay, I'm talking about just regular, just reporters who should just go with the facts, not their own opinion. But if you read their sentences line by line, word by word, they're filled with hate Trump, anti-Trump.
But I read those things every day, and I do not agree with that assessment at all. I do agree if you go to the editorial page, there are strong opinions. There are op-ed writers who have strong opinions.
So look at their even op-ed. Do they have a conservative voice there in New York Times? Come on, be honest. Do they have a conservative voice there?
I don't read the New York Times, but I read the LA Times, and they have conservative voices.
Every once in a while, they will put one, yeah.
Here's why.
So I do believe LA Times is better than NYT in that sense.
Here is why they write such disparaging things about the president, because he does so many horrible and terrible things.
I think he did a lot of great things, Jeffrey. I think he did a lot of great things. Deregulation, I love that. I love the fact that he got out of TPP. I love the fact that he got out of Paris Accord. Look at what's happening in Paris right now. The yellow vest, it's still going on right now as we are speaking.
We have a different view
and I think,
on those things.
Yeah, so even with North Korea, at least he met. You have a point too. You said he's a maniac. Kim Jong-un is a maniac, so you think there's nothing good is going to come out of it. Seems like so far there is no clear agreement. So you have some point there, but still, I think it's much better. Look at the economy. It's the unemployment rate is like 3.7% now. The blacks, Hispanics, and the Asians lowest unemployment ever recorded. I think that's a good thing. And I think he's getting popular in Michigan and those states. A lot of manufacturing companies has brought their manufacturing jobs.
I think that's.
Do you know that half million manufacturing jobs has been created under the Trump administration? Did you know that?
Do you know how many have left since Trump became president?
Less than Obama. Less than
Obama
years.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Obama said that he needs whether Trump has a magic wand. It seems like he did.
I think if you looked closely at the regulatory reforms he's made, you'd be a little bit shocked how he's made it safer to sell unsafe pharmaceuticals, how he's expanded, destroyed environmental regulations, how he's taken away consumer protection. Those regulatory reforms are not good for the average American.
Okay, let's go back to William Barr. But anyway. Have you ever seen a hearing where a senator bring a staff and ask the staff to ask questions?
Yes, I've seen that before.
Where?
You could watch. You could go back to watch the McCarthy hearings where they had
a staff member.
Yes, they had the legal counsel the committee counsel will often ask questions on behalf of the committee or on behalf of the chair. It is not unprecedented. It's not unusual. There's really no reason why he should care.
Well, how come the Senate, Jerry Nadler, asks questions by himself? Why does he have to rely on a lawyer? They're just trying to catch him like perjury or something like that. There is it? I mean, you can't see that.
That may be, but so what? If he perjures himself, they should catch him. Who does it matter who the questions come from?
I got to check that. Whether I've never seen. I watch a lot of C-SPAN, a lot of old time C-SPAN. I've never seen a staff member going, "Hey, why don't you ask a question
Well,
instead of
you
me?"
did see that just recently when a staff member asked questions of Brett Kavanaugh's accuser during the Supreme Court hearings. They delegated their authority to a hired staff member. To a consultant. So they can do that, and that's up to them. It's their committee, and they can determine.
You're saying
how to
during the
ask
Brett
questions.
Kavanaugh hearing that they had a staff member actually
Yes.
ask questions?
Yes.
I didn't. I was watching it. I didn't see
The
a staff
Republican
member.
senators, because there were no women on that committee, all men on the Republican side, they hired a woman consultant to ask all their questions.
On the Republican side, right?
On the Republican side.
Yeah, I mean, Brett Kavanaugh.
So the Democrats asked the questions themselves, but they delegated, and the Democrats didn't object to that. Nobody else objected to that.
It's a different. Obviously that's a different situation because you're saying that you said that you yourself said that
But
was Republican staff members. And Brett Kavanaugh, I don't know whether his affiliation is a Republican or not, but obviously he's conservative.
Here's the basic question is, who does it matter who the Democrats choose?
So
to
are
ask
they
the
okay?
questions?
So we're going back and forth on this. So do they hold him for contempt like
Yes,
they
they
did
should.
to Eric Holder?
Well, they should. They should hold him in contempt because he's been subpoenaed. And if you violate a subpoena, you get held in contempt.
So you have no objection about Eric Holder being he was also
If he was
held of contempt, right? You remember that, right? Back in the day.
I
think it was during the Fast and Furious.
I don't recall all the details, but I have a vague recollection that he was held in contempt. But they're required. That's one of their jobs of people in the administration is to respond to congressional oversight. They're required to go. The American people should expect them to go, and it will be partisan depending.
But he didn't like the condition. Doesn't he have a say too? Hey,
No.
I don't like your conditions.
No.
Yeah, I think is Jerry Nadler that stupid not to ask the right questions to him? He should know.
I don't think-
I'm not even sure whether he read that whole 422 redacted version of the
one
Mueller
thing I can say
report.
with Jerry Nadler is he's not a stupid man. He's a very bright man, and his
He
decision.
doesn't seem that bright to
So
me these days.
His decision to have staff people engaged is part of their strategy, and I don't know what that strategy is, but there's nothing inherently wrong with that strategy. It is not the basis for the Attorney General not.
So what's going to happen from here on out? Let's just predict what's going to happen.
Well, here's what I'm most alarmed by. So you now have Trump and people in his administration basically refusing to obey the law. And there's really no precedent in just saying, no, we're not going to obey the law, whether it be on the release of the tax returns or the House committee getting an unredacted version for the House Intelligence Committee. If the White House was committed to transparency, they would provide this information. If they say no, where do you go at this point? When the law says you must provide something, you must appear, and you don't, Congress doesn't have a police force. They can't.
What I'm saying, yeah, exactly. So they can hold him in contempt, but it doesn't change the result, right? You agree on that, right?
It does.
Because that same thing happened with Eric Holder.
But this should be really alarming to people.
But I think this is ridiculous. I mean, I got to be. The Russia collusion was completely concocted by the Obama administration. I think Barack Obama might have been implicated. I don't know. I mean, because of the text messages, it's so damaging in my opinion. But the FBI, James Comey, I believe he might get charged. I think it really doesn't look good for James Comey. This whole thing, even with the hearing, he said that Trump wasn't being investigated, but actually he was investigating. I mean, FBI was investigating Trump. And this Andy McCabe, all these people are so shadowy.
I think in the end, for me, all those things that you are so concerned about, I believe, are distractions and white noise. When I look at the substance of the Mueller report, I am alarmed. I am alarmed that the President of the United States...
What's the most alarming thing about the Mueller report for you?
The amount of, well, two things. One was the amount of interaction that people close to Trump had with Russians. So secondly, the other one was even though all of this interaction and collusion did not rise to the point of conspiracy to be a crime, it basically, to me, it says that they're bumbling around making mistakes. But even in the end, even though Trump kept saying it wasn't conspiracy, he and his people were working overtime to cover it up and to prevent testimony which they're doing now. So if he's totally been exonerated, then he should be welcome. Welcome opening up Why would he try to interfere if he had nothing to worry about?
So according to the Mueller report, they tried to approach the Trump campaign, right, the Russians, but they didn't comply with them. That's what happened. They tried to engage and they tried to collude, but it was the Trump campaign people who didn't follow through or didn't collude with them. So that's the ultimate decision that was made by Robert Mueller. I don't think Robert Mueller is a Trump fan. I don't think Robert Mueller is Trump. I bet he voted for Hillary. If I have to go to Las Vegas and bet on it, I bet. And look at his team. They're all Democrats or lean left. All the money out of 19 prosecutors there, 13 of them donated their money to Hillary or either the Democrat Party. His number 2 guy, Andrew Weissman, the number 2 guy, Pitbull for Robert Mueller. He even was at the Hillary Clinton victory campaign party. I mean, he was supposed victory campaign party at New York. So that's ridiculous. How can that person even be in the Robert Mueller special counsel team?
One thing we can say about Robert Mueller, he's a lifelong Republican, and you don't know anything about his opinions, and I don't either, because Robert Mueller doesn't really speak publicly about his personal views. And I think that was even magnified in the way he concluded this report.
But you said you were disappointed about his finding. That
I was disappointed.
To me, I think he's cowardly. Why? Because he didn't. Like, if he went for obstruction of justice, I would at least not say that he's cowardly. Okay, or either way. But for him to put that in there, put that nugget, so that the Democrats can eat that nugget and keep on, prolonging this whole thing, the Russia collusion narrative to go on. I mean, I think that was despicable what he did.
I don't think that's what he did. I think he exercised a level of caution. I think he exercised too much caution. I don't think he did anything that procedurally that I don't agree with everything he did to report his conclusions, but I don't doubt his ethics in preparing it.
Okay, let's go to the prediction for how it's going to play out this year. What is your thought? I'll give my thought on it, and then you have the last word.
Go ahead.
I think the OIG report and the declassification will come out, and I think that will unravel this whole thing, and we'll probably go on from there. How about you?
I think the OIG report and that investigation is truly, if there was a witch hunt, that truly is the witch hunt. I think right now the Democrats are not unified in how to respond. I think a lot of people are concerned about getting too close to impeachment. Unclear at this point, but I think the Mueller report, there's more people dig into it, will be very damning for the president and his administration. Okay.
So, I mean, we got to just wait and see. It's been I think this whole Russia collusion thing has been very damaging. Very damaging.
You told me I got the last word.
I mean, I mean, I just think that it has been so damaging to this country, and I feel really bad about it. I feel really bad about. I mean, if they didn't come up with anything about the whole Russia collusion thing, and they kept, going on, keep on piling up on this. The mainstream media has been covering this story for 2-3 years now, and it's just crazy, in my opinion.
It is crazy, it is damaging, but I lay the blame at the feet of the President of the United States who brought all this on.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's our show for today. Our show, Op-Ed Live, is not about left or right, it's about right or wrong. To stay up to date with our Op-Ed show, please subscribe.